So what does the pro songwriter know that maybe you don't? See, in this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain so you can know what the pros know, because ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is failure, y'all. Johnny, do your thing.
Welcome to the climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music industry. Leverage is what you're going to need in today's music industry. It's not about your talent. Nobody's going to come and develop it. You're going to have to show proof that what you do has value. You're going to have a track record. Then the doors will open for you. So the good news is you don't need to ask anybody's permission to get it. The bad news is you're going to have to do it yourself. I just think that's better anyway. That's why we called it the C.L.I.M.B. C.L.I.M.B. Creating leverage in the music business. See what we did there? Are you picking up what we putting down?
I see that.
You see what we dropped? See what we slid in across the floor? See that? That's a Baxter now for my good friend and hit songwriter Brent Baxter, who's got cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. Got a couple number ones last year in Southern Gospel, my man. Congratulations again on that.
Thank you.
And what I love about Brent is he helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he's going to get you opportunities to get in front of the pros, to get in front of the people that you're going to want to create relationships with to get your cuts happening. You can find Brent very easily at songwriterpro.com, songwritingpro.com. It's easily for me to say. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Listen, if you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production singular, no S, and there's no S because there is no other Johnny D. What's up?
Older, super sober, because I got like a nasty little chest thing going on, and drank in 2 days. Not happy about that, but
you'll survive.
Yeah,
I have a feeling.
So I'm glad on this one I can ride shotgun. I can ride shotty here and just got to come in and try not to cough.
Right. I got
what
you.
What did we learn today?
Seems to be going around. So,
what are we learning today?
All right. Today we're talking about, what the pro knows and why that should matter to you. Because simply put, if you want to be a pro, you need to think like a pro. You need to know what they know so you can do what they do to help you be successful. So we're just going to dive into some of that stuff that, hey, you need to be not only aware of this stuff, but acting upon it if you want to turn pro.
Yeah, be a student of the game.
Exactly.
It's
and
always
then play the
different than what you
freaking game.
think it is.
Don't just be a student. The game. You got to play the freaking game.
You got to know how to play it, and then you got to actually
get on the field.
Play it. You got to grab the dice. You got to get on the field. You got to, All right. Well, before we get to that, let's take care of a little business here. As always, we are super proud to be one of the flagship shows on American Songwriters Podcast Network. That's on AmericanSongwriter.com. Y'all, that's American Songwriter Magazine. It's a 36-year-old brand name. That is just cool. If you found us on American Songwriter Magazine, welcome to the climb. If you've been a climber for the last 5+ years, check out the other shows. There's a lot of really good stuff on this podcast network. There's, I think, 15 shows, right, or more.
Yeah, something like that. It's a good number of shows.
It's all about songwriting. It's all about production. It's all about the music business, and you're gonna have nothing but value bombs there, and a one-stop shop to go there. So shout out to them. Join the C.L.I.M.B community if you haven't done so already. That's on Facebook. That's just facebook.com/C.L.I.M.B community.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It doesn't say pull it up real quick. Just the C.L.I.M.B community. Actually.
I'm sorry, the C.L.I.M.B community. I should know that. But this is a ever-growing, thriving, neat little Facebook group of people that are active. They're getting songwriter co-writes getting hooked up there, even long-distance co-writes that are lucrative, that are getting placed, that are getting cuts, that are, all kinds of cool stuff is happening. People talking about different promotion ideas and techniques and sharing, and you can ask questions, you can get answers, you can learn. Whenever I find something that turns me on in one of the industry trades, I'm going to post that in there so that
Mm-hmm.
that can be a one-stop shop for you just to keep abreast of the ever-changing music industry here. And we want to shout you out too. We got a place for some wins, right? We're
Heck
going to let
yeah.
you post what you want to post, but post it in the right place. Otherwise, you know, you're going to get in trouble. Okay. And you got to ask to be let into the C.L.I.M.B community. We just
Mm-hmm.
do that to put a little weight on it, but we let everybody in.
That's
Okay.
right.
And we like to give them a shout out when they come in. So what do we got for this week's
Yeah,
wins?
so a couple climbers with some wins this week. Bill O'Hanlon says, I got one of my songs forwarded to an artist yesterday. Fingers crossed. So fingers crossed for
I
you,
think it's
Bill.
because of the hair. He's growing his hair out.
He's growing
You
his
see
hair
that?
out. So it's the, you can't resist that. You just
You
can't.
can't. It's just, dude. This guy's swagulated now.
Spagulated. That's great.
Yeah,
And let's
I
see.
like that.
Sunday Joe Graham, whose hair is not as long as Bill's now. But anyway, Sunday
Sunny
Joe
Joe.
says one of my songs is being pitched to Chrissy Metz from This Is Us, so that TV show that a lot of people watch that has all. I think I've never seen it, but from the you might see a commercial for it. It has all the feels,
Mm.
all the feels. But anyway, Chrissy is doing has a record deal, is doing a deal, and so one of
Oh,
Sunday's songs
cool.
is getting pitched to her. So that's cool.
Congrats,
So
Sunday Joe.
fingers crossed to both Bill and to Sunday, and keep on climbing. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you consume your podcast. Leave a rating and review. And you know what? The best thing you can do is we don't take the time that you spend with us every week here lightly. We don't take it for granted. We work our butts off to try to make that worth your while. And the only reason you're there is because it is worth your while. So
Mm-hmm.
tell a friend about it. You're not doing it as an outreach program to us. If you're finding something in it that's helping you, another songwriter, another artist, another musician, tell them about it. Turn them on to the podcast. Let them know because, I mean, once again, we had, I just saw another post from some new climbers like, okay, I'm binging now.
I saw that too. That was great.
And that happens all the time. You know why? Because there's stuff in there that can help. We're trying to help. Help us, help you, help them.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All
That's
right.
for
So
sure. All right.
let's get into this.
So the pro knows. Okay, what do I mean by the pro? Let's just go ahead and just set that first. So we're going to dive into what the pro knows and why it matters to you, climbers. So the pro is a songwriter who gets cuts, is respected in the industry, and maintains long-term success in the business. Okay, so the pro, as I'm calling this person here, is kind of a composite figure I've made from professional songwriters I've written with over the years, ones I know, successful writers I've studied from a distance, and lessons I've learned from personal experience. So we're just going to dive through about 5 of these things that the pro knows that you need to know and act upon if you want to be a pro too. So,
Awesome.
All right, let's dive in. Number 1, the pro knows you have to endure. So songwriting is like massive rejection, especially in the beginning, but really it never stops. Always. So
yeah.
when you're just getting started, it can seem to take forever just for doors to start opening for you. And when they finally start to open like a crack, it's usually rejection after rejection after rejection on the other side of that. Like, oh, pushing so hard to get this door open. Well, what's behind it? A tiger. Oh, great. Okay. You need something. So, but this is it, right? You get the whole not good enough, keep on writing, dig deeper, what else you got? It's not quite there for you. Cool. Which, by the way, means pass. So eventually, those rejections start turning into more open doors somehow, right? You just keep failing up. In a weird way, you have to see it as kind of a success when your songs start getting rejected by people further and further up the ladder. Like,
That's
all
right.
right, I've never been rejected on the 5th floor before. I've never gotten past the 4th. Sweet.
I never had Tim McGraw reject one of my songs. That's exciting.
Yeah, which is exactly the story I like to tell about this because it was my first month in Nashville, moving here from Arkansas, and I've gotten to know a song plugger named Tracy Jewell over at RPM Music, who eventually years later would become actually a publisher of mine, but this was way before that. And anyway, I was going to go visit her because she's one of like the 3 people in the business I knew, and I played a song for her, and she's like, "Oh, I know this one. I played this for Tim." I'm like, "Tim?" She's like, "McGraw." I'm like, You will what? She said, he passed.
What?
I was like, whoa, what? You played it for Tim? And Tim McGraw heard my freaking song, and I'm just moved here, So, I mean, that was further than any of my songs, to my knowledge, had ever gotten before. So that rejection was a victory, and I celebrated it like one. I mean, I was flying high on the way home, and it was a pass.
Yeah.
But I remember, driving back over 40 on Demumbrian, back toward the roads because they're over in Cummins Station at the time, and just being like, wow, he heard my song,
Yeah.
and it
Well,
felt like
how
such
about
a
this?
victory.
How many friends did you have at that point that had their songs rejected by Tim McGraw? That's a small club.
Yeah.
You just entered
Yeah.
into a different club.
It was a different club because probably none of my friends have had a song rejected by Tim McGraw at that point, except for my co-writer on that song,
Right.
Tim, another guy named Tim. So
That's a cool club. That's a cool. I don't care who you are. That's a cool
yeah, it's
club
like,
for you,
all
man.
right. I remember one
You got
time.
something good enough that got to Tim.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Somebody thought it was good enough,
dude.
and that somebody could get it to him, and he passed. But you know what? He's passed on a lot of great songs. So okay, I'll be in that club
Sure.
to
Yeah.
start.
Nothing.
I don't want to stay in that club, but hey, getting invited into that club, hey, right
That's the
there on the
first
block.
door. That's the first. That's the waiting room
Mm-hmm.
to get into the club of people who got cuts by Tim McGraw.
Exactly. You got to get in that club first, right?
That's right.
So, I remember when Monday Morning Church, it was the first song I ever got on hold, and it was on hold for Leanne Womack. It was the first hold I ever got. And, I remember when Erin Enderlin, my co-writer on it, she told me that Aaron, that Leanne had put it on hold, or Keith Stegall had put it on hold for Leanne, and it's of course super exciting. And then, eventually, the hold came off hold. But I was like, you know what? It's nice to be held.
Yeah. That's right.
It is just
It's
nice to be
nice
held
to
by
be
Leanne
held.
Womack. So, you
Oh,
got to
you know
look at
what?
those as victories.
I gotta jump in for a second. So I told you I've been like hanging a lot with Janelle. We've been
Mm-hmm.
going out, and she has a lot of friends in this industry. Because she used to be a dog breeder. This is so strange, right? Like for
Okay.
these special dogs, they're like white golden retrievers. Okay.
Okay.
So like a high end dog breeder, and so she kind of has a rock star network of like all kinds of people the way a rock star would,
Yeah.
like, oh, I've sold dogs to heads of state. I've sold dogs to people on your hometown street. And she stays in touch with all of them. But
Huh.
so she has friends with all these, she's friends with all these artists in town. And we've been spending time with Drake White and his wife
Oh yeah.
and their circle of people. And, Aaron Enderlin's name keeps coming up. Like they like there's been some stuff with some of the writers in there. I keep hearing Aaron Enderlin, and she's just really doing well. And I just thought about that because that's your co-writer on that song.
Yeah. She's an
And
independent. If you like country, you may just like Aaron's stuff. So she has
yeah,
records out, doing EP, doing projects and stuff, putting stuff out, and so she's super talented.
she's making it happen.
She's making it happen. Exactly.
Right.
So
Just shout out to Aaron Enderlin, and every time I think of that, I just think of you.
there you
It makes
go.
me smile.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's your boy.
That's my boy. That's right. All right. So, talking about, endurance. Eventually, one of those fortunate, if you're one of the fortunate few, one of those no's will turn to a yes every now and then. Not all the
Yeah.
time, but even a yes is often disappointing. Yes, they cut it, but it's on a no-name artist. Oh, yeah, they cut it, but the record never came out. Yeah, they cut it, but it's a bonus track that's almost impossible to find. And I've had like all those things happen to me at least once or twice or more, and you're like, all right, and you get excited, then you're just kind of deflated a little bit. Somebody used to say, this is years ago, like, what's the best news you can get in as a songwriter? Brooks and Dunn cut your song. What's the worst news you can get as a songwriter? Kix is singing it. Because you're like, it's not going to be a single, that was the old joke. Which, anyway, that's funny.
But you know what? It is just about consistency, man. And in the sales world, where I spent a lot of time after being an artist, it's just a matter of the numbers. This sounds cliche, but it's the reality is still the math is it holds true. Every no gets you closer to a yes. So wear them like a badge of honor, because every time you get one, you're one step closer to a yes. And then in this business, I will tell you that it's about marquee value. So you're doing all this work, you're getting all these no's, you're getting all this stuff happening, but you're building up a catalog, you're building up a storefront with product that people can go and browse once they become aware of who you are, because you end up in the trades, because you get that big cut that
Mm-hmm.
happens, and then all of a sudden everything else that was passed on now becomes viable, and that's what you're working towards. So
Yeah.
it's not wasted time. It ain't over after that. No, it just
No,
means it's not now. It just means not
it's
now.
not
You
now.
know.
And of course that's assuming that your product is good enough, meets spec, right?
Right.
If your
And
songs
I'm
just stink, it doesn't matter how many you sling out there. But assuming your
fair
songs
enough
meet spec,
to
then it does somewhat become a numbers
and to be
game.
clear, when I say these things, I'm assuming that you understand the difference between a competitive song and
A
an amateur
non-competitive,
song or a
right?
mediocre song. You know,
Yep,
like it's just that simple.
that's right. So the pro knows you have to be patient. You have to endure. Sure, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get disappointed again and again and again, but you have to keep getting back up. You have to keep all that stuff outside the writing room. You have to keep your head down. You just have to keep working. You just got to keep on believing, as the don't stop believing, as the old song says, right?
Hmm.
And part of disappointment, let's look at that word disappointment. I had an appointment, so I thought, and they didn't show up. Now I'm disappointed,
Hmm.
right? Part of it, you just have to realize this is the game. This is the business, is tons of rejection. So I'm really not that disappointed anymore. It's not because I expect failure or rejection or whatever, but you just, in a way, you kind of do. You expect there to be a lot of it. You expect each pitch to have a good chance of success, or you wouldn't pitch it. But at the same time, I'm not like surprised when somebody passes. Like,
Right.
oh, I really thought. Sometimes you still pitch and you're like, oh boy, this is perfect for so and so, and they'll still pass, and you get a little disappointed. But realizing this is the game, is going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I can't take it personal. Got to keep drive on, just keep going. So that's what the pro knows. You have to endure. You just got to
You know
keep
what? And
on
it's like
going.
this. Like you want to play football, whether it's on a field with your friends in high school, in college, or in the pros. 80% chance you're going to get an injury when you step on the field.
Oh,
So if you're
I
surprised
have the knee scars to
by
prove
getting
it.
hurt, yeah, like if you don't think you're going to get hurt, well, that's just naivete. Like
Yeah,
that's part of the deal. You're in the corporate world right now. Promise you got some kind of d-bag boss who doesn't get what's going on. Who's just in your way. The whole thing. You got to play that game too. That's the game.
yeah.
You got to play the game. I mean, this comes. I don't care if you're working at McDonald's or if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. There's politics. There's
Hmm.
BS in
There's
every single
regulations you
game.
don't like.
Yeah,
There's
it's somebody's trying to get in your way somewhere,
yeah,
somehow, and they're trying to charge you for it, and all
yeah,
this kind of crap. I mean, it's just part of. So get over it.
yeah. You just gotta go.
Get
I'm
over
not
it. This is it. This is like what are you doing? At least you're getting the same crap you get at your day job, doing something you really love to do. And if
right.
you can figure out how to get paid for doing that, that's a better day. That's better work if you can get it,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So that's one. All right, let's get on to number two. Number two, the pro knows this is a relationship business. All right. So the story of a cut is, in many ways, a story of relationships. Like, I knew this guy who knew this producer, blah, blah, blah. Songs travel through relationships. Sure, there might be an oddball story here and there of Blake Shelton cutting God Gave Me You after you heard Dave Barnes' version on the radio, like listen to CCM radio or something on satellite. But those are rare, where they somehow come across a song they have to track you down. The seasoned pro knows that you have to have the best chance of success. He needs to have as many good relationships in the business as possible. He wants to have a good song plugger pitching his songs. He wants to know as many producers and A&R people as possible. He wants to know the managers. He wants to know and write with the artist and the artist co-writing buddies. He wants to be buddies with the artists themselves, ultimately, because that's the shortest path to a cut. So, for example, I wrote this song called When Your Lips Are So Close, which you can see on the wall behind me here if you're on video. And I wrote it with the producer and the artist. It became a
Hmm.
number one hit in Canada, a number one hit in Canada, and a single of the year up there. And I never would have gotten a shot at getting on that project if I hadn't known Byron Hill, who was the producer at the time. So Byron and I met years before. Probably first time through a Chad Green ASCAP workshop, and then later through maybe Carla Wallace at Big Yellow Dog, but just somehow got maybe over at Major Bob. But we started writing together before my first publishing deal, and hit it off and have just maintained a relationship. And he was having success up in Canada producing Gord. And finally, I was like, "Hey, Byron, I'd really love a shot to write for that record. Is he coming down?" I had it kind of working for a while, and eventually we got in the room together, and Byron and Gord and I wrote 3 songs over a couple of years or whatever, and all 3 of them got cut. One of them became number 1. But I wouldn't have been in that room if I hadn't known Byron,
Right.
and that gave me the opportunity. So it is a relationship business. Good relationships also provide 2 invaluable assets: information and access. So, like say for the Gord thing, I was able to talk to Byron, so I got access to Gord through Byron because I just didn't know how to reach out to him or whatever. But Byron's the producer; I know him, so therefore he can play go between. We all get in a room together.
The best way for you to come in too, because you come in with some clout, you come in with some credit, because Byron suggested you.
Yeah, and thankfully, yeah, exactly. So even if
Because
I
Byron
hadn't
has a
had
relationship with Gord and you don't.
exactly, and so even though I'd had some track record, had some cuts by that point. Monday Morning Church had been a hit, so Gord probably knew that one, but still, Byron is the conduit to get into that room. He, was able to fly my flag for me, and he got me in there because he thought I would bring value. Ultimately, he wasn't doing me a favor; he was doing us all a favor.
Right.
So
Can I jump in for a second?
yeah,
I want to point out, like, if you listen to last week's episode where we talked about the one-to-one exchange, and even in, and I talked about your kitchen table, 3 kinds of people. The first category of people at your kitchen table is family and friends. Second category is friends of family and friends.
yeah,
Those are referrals, right?
mm-hmm.
Those are other people's relationships. So you come with a little bit of clout, a little bit of credit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very low. Like you're gonna, and you're prepared to love them until they prove otherwise. But still, there's that moment where can we get along? Do you care
Yeah,
about me too? The way you care about him? That whole dance has to happen before they become a friend to you
mm-hmm.
and go from the referral friend of a friend to be into the friend category. And this is no different. So, when you're talking about relationships, it's still like you have to go in and sow those seeds, and you still have to go in and do that one-to-one
Mm-hmm.
exchange and sell and convince them that, hey, I'm here for a reason, and we're gonna be just fine. You know what I mean? And be
Mm-hmm.
that cool. Hey, because even if you're a good friend of Byron, if you and Gord don't fit, or
Yeah,
if your personalities don't jive,
mm-hmm.
um, who cares?
Yeah, it's not
Right?
going to work.
So it's not just it's still all that work has to be done. And then I wanted to point out one other thing too,
Mm-hmm.
is that you know what else travels through relationships like songs do in the music industry?
COVID.
Yeah, well, COVID, friendship relationships, platonic relationships,
Uh-huh.
romantic
Mm-hmm.
relationships, jobs that you have right now.
Mm-hmm.
They all travel through relationships. How many
Yeah.
of you listening to this podcast right now have a significant other that was introduced to you by a friend?
Oh yeah.
How many
My
people
wife
listen to this podcast right now? There you go.
was my roommate's sister.
There you go. How many people are you working at a job right now that you got because a friend hooked you up?
Mm-hmm.
How many of you have had a job in your past that you got because a friend hooked you up? Maybe you really needed it too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like you were desperate for a job and a friend said, man, I got you. Like, come in and do this. Whatever. I don't care what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a desperate, like bussing tables when you're 18 years old or something, or I need money right now. Help me out. Okay, I'm going to hook you up with this guy. He's
Yeah.
going to, boom, boom, boom. This is the way the world works.
Yeah.
So don't be mad at it because it also works that way
Yeah.
in the
You're not
music
going to
industry.
escape it.
It ain't no different.
You don't like it here, you're
Yeah.
not going to like anything else in the world either. So
That's all I had to say about that. Okay.
yeah, that's a good point. So not only access, but also information. So, Byron working with Gord as a producer, he was able, I was like, okay, what do y'all need? Right. Cause I'm in the service business. So it doesn't matter what I got. What do you need? Cause I want to do my
Love
homework
that.
so I can come into this, co-write loaded up with ideas and things that are going to be valuable because I want to serve, right? So that's how I'm going to get on that record is serving Gord well and Byron well too. So I'm like, what do y'all need? He's like, well, we're wanting to go kind of in this direction and blah, blah, blah. So he gave me some stuff. And based on that information, and it was like, we're kind of wanting to pivot a little bit and go a little bit more in, like the sexier or kind of, whatever kind of direction. I can't remember right now how he described it to me, but that's what sent me down the path to looking through my titles and going, what can fit into this kind of thing that they're talking about for Gord? And I ran across this title, When Your Lips Are So Close. I'm like, okay, that could be this kind of thing. And it was just vibing on that and came in with some ideas thinking this direction for Gord, which is a little different than what he traditionally had done. It was a little bit of a departure for him.
Say that one more time.
It was different than what he traditionally had done. I would have not thought this, When Your Lips Are So Close, if I'd only listened to his records.
So this is I want to point this out, like how smart you are, because you went into this right with the mindset of what do you need?
Yeah.
I know how to build a house. You know how to build a house.
What kind of house you want?
We need to know two things. Yeah. What kind of house are we building this time?
Mm-hmm.
Number one. And number two, what style of house are we building? And number two, what part of the house are we working in?
Yeah.
Like right now, like what part of the house are we building? Because, if we think about each house as like an album and then all the different rooms of the songs and the experiences along the way, like what part of the house are we in right now? And you can only get there if you come in humble and trying to serve. If you come in thinking like, I know exactly how to write a Jason Aldean song, and they're doing that album that 1984 was on, you wrong.
Right.
Your last episode. That was the last episode. Like, and now you look foolish.
I mean, just or it's like you're in with everybody else that's pitching last record stuff.
Yep.
So I got some insight, some information that I could target my writing, my pre-writing more for Gord. And then, we also wrote some stuff that's more traditional kind of Gord. Those things, got on the record, but they weren't the big hit single. And I would have been happy to just be on the record, but I was a lot happier to be on the single. So, having more relationships in the business, man, just gives a writer more advantages. So therefore, the pro is going to take the time and considers it just a part of doing business to develop relationships with others in the music business. Like it's fun, but it's not always fun. But it's part of doing business. It's getting to know people you don't know yet, and being intentional about that and valuing, relationships. It's not cheating. It's the way business is done. So the pro knows you have to.
I want to jump in and say this. Like on that note, if you haven't, and I'm going to do a shameless plug for Brent right now, and I'm just doing it because it's for real. But
all right,
4 times a year, Brent does the play for publisher thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's $25, right?
Yeah.
So it's $100 a year to get 4 opportunities to create a relationship that you don't have yet.
Yeah.
And or a $25 a quarter education or $100 a year education on why don't you have it yet? Like because it could be just that your song doesn't fit this particular publisher and it's great and it's competitive.
Right.
But it could also be, well, maybe the bar's a little higher than you thought. And you get to watch that. You get to sit in on that. You get to hear what it's like and you get to do it. And it's, the more relationships you can create, the more you're going to stack the deck in your favor. And, it just takes that one song to begin to create that relationship. And then if you're doing your job and you're consistent and you're networking and you're staying in touch with that person, you're trying to add value to that person, then this is how that works. This is nothing to be afraid of. And for some of the emails that I see that you get from time to time, like, oh, $25. Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have just sent Byron frickin' to your house and told them you were a rock star and
exactly.
just, hey, I'm going to pay money. I'm going to fly this guy out to your place. We're going to put him up in a hotel by you just so you guys can hang because I know you're worth it. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, here it is. Like, how many
I can
more
barely pay for my own
need?
kids. I don't need to pay. I don't need to take on a lot of extra kids. So, but here, just speaking of that, we just Monday night. So we're recording this on a Wednesday, but just Monday night we did have the latest edition event of the Play for Publisher, and this is part of like where relationship comes in. So there's a guy in the community, Patrick Dodge. So Patrick K, if you're listening, so he's pretty consistently at these things. He's a consistently good writer. Always sends in good stuff. And one of his made into the top 10 song that is more of it's a Christian song. So we had country and Christian in this. I was with Stacy Wilbur from Tim Publishing. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, good song. That's why I made it through. And so we're on this Zoom video call. So I'm like playing matchmaker, right? So I'm introducing, hey, and I think she might have already known Patrick. I think maybe they'd bumped into each other before, but this is that frequency, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, we're in this meeting and I play the song. I'm like, here's Patrick, here's his awesome song. And part of she's like, oh, this demo leans more like Southern, but I could also with that lyric, I could hear that going CCM. Maybe, do you have another like kind of version of the demo that could be? He's like, yeah, we did this one a little more Southern leaning. And so I was able to go, well, Patrick, if you have that other demo, get it to me and I'll get it to her. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
part of like, if he had just sent it in, you don't get that kind of feedback. You don't get that kind of response of like, could you, maybe is there a version that does a little bit more of this? He wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
know that. It would just be maybe a pass, or maybe you should keep and listen to it a little bit or whatever. But that's
You
the
wouldn't know
power
you
of
wouldn't know the
relationships.
nuance of it. You wouldn't know the
The nuance
nuance
of
of it.
it. Most likely you're not going to hear anything back. Even if they
Yeah.
pitch it or are interested and live with it and are really considering it, you don't know. And so that's the value of kind of relationship. Like I could be
Yep.
he might have already known her a little bit. He's probably run into her, but definitely in that context, I was able to kind of do the warm handoff. Hey, meet so and so. Anyway,
There you go.
so far, pro knows you have to endure, and pro knows that it's a relationship business. Number 3, the pro knows you have to be disciplined. Here's the deal: nobody's looking over your shoulder. Nobody's going to make you write a song. The pro knows that he or she has to sit down with the song even when they don't feel inspired at first, because the pro knows you don't wait for inspiration, you go out in search of it. So rewriting can be a chore, right? Sometimes your song is almost right, but you can't quite put your finger on what's not quite hitting on all cylinders. And that last bit of polish is where your diamond might, that last bit of polish might be the most difficult, but that's where you get the best shine out of it. Or maybe you really like your song, but your publisher thinks you need to take another look at it. And that's not always fun, right? That's usually not fun when you came in feeling good about it and then somebody's like, well, I'll take a look at that second verse because I think there's something here. And like, crap. But you know what? From personal experience, I've seen a lot of my songs get better because I was challenged by a publisher to go back in and just dig a little deeper, find something that we missed or whatever. And the pro's going to do the work because the pro knows like 90% awesome makes you zero money. Like you got
Right.
to, I mean, that's your only chance is getting as good as you can. And, we talked about networking. Not every songwriter loves to go out to writers' nights or industry events or whatever and network. A lot of people don't like that. They'd rather be home on the couch. They'd rather be out writing a song. They'd rather be whatever, just going having a beer and a pizza. And I'm sure that there's not a writer out there who loves to sit across from a producer or A&R rep and have them turn off their best song halfway through the chorus. The pro does those things anyway. They do the difficult things because they know they have to be disciplined to have sustained success. It's doing the things that it doesn't take a lot of discipline to do the things that are fun,
Yeah.
Although, ironically, it can take a lot of discipline to sit down to write, which ends up being fun, and that's your favorite thing to do, but it can be really hard to sit down to start it. But it's definitely hard for some people to go out and reach out to somebody they don't know to make a relationship, start building that uncertainty, that putting yourself out there. The pro knows you got to do it. So being disciplined means taking the time to take a step back from the fun and busyness of writing, co-writing, demoing, all that fun stuff, to do an honest evaluation of your songwriting business. That takes discipline to do that. So, because there's a difference between working in your business and working on your business. Working in your business includes the writing, the demoing, and that's the fun stuff. Working on your business might include looking at your co-writers and going, okay, is this the best crew I can be running with? Do I need to, maybe some of these people are drag on the system here, and I need to offload them because they're poison, they're toxic, or they're just not working hard. And who can I replace them with? And that sounds cold, but it's business, And how can I
Yeah.
get a stronger team? So maybe it's working on your business might include deciding, you know what, I don't write that many up-tempo positive love songs. I need to make a constant, concerted effort to do this. And will make myself a note on my guitar, sticky note on my guitar, whatever, right tempo. Stupid.
Make yourself a note on your thermos, your coffee
On your
thermos.
thermos,
That's
write
how I
this, not
met
that.
Brent Baxter, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
We were cutting one of your songs. Kelly and I were cutting one of your songs, and you show up to the studio, and I just happened to be walking out in the parking lot, and I met you, and I'm like, oh, it's Brent. And I'm like a little kind of, be cool, hit songwriter, be cool. I'm trying to be my coolest self. I'm not even lying. I'm just like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, hey dude, and we just get into this conversation, and just a really pleasant conversation, getting to know one another, and I just keep kind of looking off. I'm trying not to be like stare at it, but there's something written on his
Like
freaking
travel
coffee
coffee
thermos.
mug. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like 1, 2, and 3, so it's numbered. I think, wasn't it?
I
And
believe so.
and I know, so it's one of those, like, if you ever seen the Steve Martin movie, Roseanne, with the big nose, like you just can't
Yeah.
stop looking
Roxanne.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roxanne.
Yeah.
That's what. And I just keep looking at it, and then I'm pretty sure like I'm getting busted looking at it, like by you. So I'm looking like really weird, and then I'm like, okay, look, what's with the coffee mug? Like, what's
Yeah.
with the coffee thermos? What's on there? And you said what?
It was a note to self. It was like, write this, not that. It was write tempo, positive, love, in the moment. I can't remember what all they were, but it was
I
because
remember the story was you had, at some point in the not so distant past, you
Mhm.
had had a meeting with a publisher who was like, I think that these are knockdown, drag out smash hits in the
in the
1990s.
in the 90s, and this was like
And this was not
2012.
the 90s. This is like 2012. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
And just had to remind myself and go and do the homework, which is, was not fun to do. But you know what is a perfect segue into point number 4, which is the pro knows you must always seek to improve and stay relevant. So perfect
Yeah.
segue. So yeah, because I got challenged with that. Go and look what's getting cut today, how they speak, how just the language, how they lyrics are constructed, and I was challenged to do that, and I went and did the homework. I had a good buddy going like, "Oh, you don't know what he's talking about. You're a great writer, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "I'm gonna do the work, like, because I'm not getting the results I want to get. I'm not getting as many cuts as I want. I'm not getting all the love I want. So there is room for improvement. It's not
And
all
by the
down."
way, it's not a bad skill to have. It just because you learn the skill doesn't mean you got to use it.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to go look and study on what has actually ended up on people's records. And that's what eventually became what's part of the Songwriting Pro membership community now, our Artist Insight Reports. That was the first versions of that I was doing for myself to go, what are people actually cutting? What is actually getting on their records? Not like, what songs do I love by Tony Lane, or what songs do I feel the best about for my own stuff?
Mm-hmm.
What stuff is actually getting cut? Like,
Yeah.
that, what is actually where I want to be? And you start looking through there and going, wow, okay, they're not doing the 3-act plays anymore. They're not doing the kind of silly songs. In the 90s you could get away with like an achy breaky heart, don't tell my
Mm-hmm.
heart, my achy breaky, just kind of silly, right? And or Sold by
That's
John
my
Michael Montgomery.
story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Colin Ray. You can get some of that stuff cut in the 90s. It was cool. Or you could be like super sensitive guy,
Mm.
like with your Vince Gills, your a lot of those
Love
balladeers
me.
like
Back to
Brian
Colin Ray.
White, Colin Ray,
Yeah.
Doug Stone. I mean, you could have a lot of like real sensitive dudes, and it was cool in the 90s. I love that stuff. But at that time, 2012 was like, dudes aren't doing that. They're not doing the kind of the silliness, and they aren't doing all this stuff. It's rare. And so just looking at going, wow, this is not the 90s anymore, and applying that. And I had to make myself a note on a coffee mug that I was carrying to the row every day, going, write this, not that, just to remind myself. Or, the co-writers, they might ask about it too. So you're just having that conversation and keeping it, what are we writing today? Well, let's write something that has, we got all these ideas. Let's just write something we think is going to be more relevant
Yeah.
to the proceedings. So, but at the same time, a song like Crickets did get cut by Joe Nichols, which is more that kind of old school. It's kind of silly. It's self-deprecating a little bit. It's definitely country. And that was written probably right around that time, or maybe before, like when we met. Trying to think when that Joe record came out. But, that was an important thing too for my career, to have a title track on Joe Nichols. And so I think the pro knows it's wise to diversify your portfolio, not just do the one thing. Like, I do stone cold country ballads. Okay. But even if it's like I do country music with EDM beats or whatever. Like we want to diversify the portfolio because the market's always changing. Just like it's not the 90s anymore, it's not the early 2000s anymore, it's not
The
2010s anymore.
2010s anymore.
It is moving and changing, and we need to keep up and try to stay ahead of the curve. I mean, if you're trying to surf, you're on that front edge of that wave is where it
Yeah.
gets best. If you're on the back end, you kind of miss the ride. It's not fun. If you're on the top, whatever too far out in front, you get just walloped. But
Right.
it's that kind of leading edge that we're trying to get to. And the fun of that too is knowing that different artists, there are all these different waves coming. A John Party, what's next for him is not what's next for Florida Georgia Line,
Right.
or what's next for Sam Hunt or Dan and Shay. Like they're in different places. So it's not like, so there's a place for that countryer stuff and there's a place for the more pop stuff. And I want to write some of all that. Also, seeking to stay relevant is like I've been writing more Southern gospel, like Doors Open, where I had relationships, going back to the relationship things. Like, where do I have relationships where I can provide value and maybe we can all get value from this and we can all win? Like, oh, look at my buddy Jason Cox over there who's killing it in Southern gospel. I love Jesus. So let's see if I can connect with him and do some writing. Just, hey,
There you go.
may I come in? Knock on the door politely. And he got me, him, and Kenna West in the room together. And we've had several cuts and 2 number ones together in that world. And that helps me stay relevant. It's a different market. But, if you're just talking to writers, hey, what you up to? Oh, I just had this thing. And, you all start career vomiting on each other. And that's gives you something to talk about,
Yeah.
And it helps you endure as well. A number one in Southern isn't the same financial return as a number one in country by any means, but it's a cut.
Still a number one.
It's number one. It
on
can go
the
on
radio.
the wall. It
Not
can,
number one in Kalamazoo on frickin' Reverb Nation.
There we go.
It's number one on the radio.
Yeah, and it
yeah.
helps me endure. It helps me. It's artistically fulfilling because I get to diversify and not do the same thing every day. So it keeps me from being bored. And
Validating.
It's validating, and just it doesn't look bad when you can say, "Oh, he's written this many number ones in his career." That doesn't hurt either. But so again, you want to keep on improving. You want to keep challenging your skills. You want to keep an eye on them. I've heard publishers say, you can write yourself into this business, and you can write yourself out of it. Meaning, you write yourself into it by doing the scene that's cool and different. Then you write yourself out of it because you don't adapt in the wave moves on and you're not staying on top of it. And now you're still writing stuff that sounds like it's 10 or 20 years old and it's not relevant anymore. And you're not changing and not adapting. I'm sorry, these are great, but this is not what's getting cut these days. So you wrote yourself right out of the business again.
Yep.
And you got to stay on it and really work. Some great examples. Bobby Braddock, Hall of Fame songwriter. He wrote arguably the greatest country song of all time. He Stopped Loving Her Today. That was a Bobby Braddock song, right? So classic country, CMA like Song of the Year 2 years in a row. But Bobby hasn't. That's crazy. But Bobby hasn't spent the last several decades since then trying to write another version of He Stopped Loving Her Today. In fact, he wrote I Want to Talk About Me, Want to Talk About I for Toby Keith, like a rappy, love it or hate it song that was a hit for Toby. He wrote God is Great, Beer is Good, and People Are Crazy for Billy Carrington.
I love that song.
And so it's hard to imagine some of these songs coming from the same planet, let alone from the same brain. But that's what Bobby Braddock has done. He's, not everything he writes is, I'm sure, going to sound completely current, but man, he's managed to stay relevant for decades.
If you're,
yeah,
hold on a second. If you're talking like this, just occurred to me. Think about health, your health.
Yeah.
Like your digestive health and your physical health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too much of any one thing only is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Little meat is good. If all you eat is meat, that's bad.
Yeah.
Salad is good. If all you eat is salad, that's bad.
Where's your B12 coming from? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you're working out and you're just like, I'm a bicep guy. And all you do is biceps. And you've got guns, like big guns, but no tries. You've got no legs. You've got no abs. Everything else is just falling apart.
Yeah.
but your buys are awesome.
It's not
Well,
healthy.
it's not healthy. I mean,
Right.
look at you're going to cause problems, right? You're literally going to cause
Yeah.
problems with your body because you got these stronger muscles that are going to have more tension. They're going to be pulling ligaments and stuff one way,
Hmm.
and it's going to be hurt. And so, why wouldn't you want to be well rounded? Why wouldn't you want to be, when you're doing a healthy lifting schedule, you're working on your chest, and
Hmm.
another lifting day you're working on your back, and then you're working on bis and tris, and then you're working on your legs, and you're just sort of rotating around on these body parts to get everything kind of all dialed in together
Hmm.
and healthy and balanced,
Makes a nice body of work.
So I feel like
Yeah.
when songwriters just would cut down, and I mean, as an artist, I'm guilty of doing this when I was an artist, so I get the mindset of like, well, this is what we write. We don't write that.
Hmm.
Fuck, those guys suck.
Yeah.
Brr, 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 brr. It's like, no, that's what's really, especially like, it's stupid when an artist does it, but I'm the artist. I can do whatever I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really stupid when somebody's trying to sell something to an artist
Hmm.
and then they're telling them what they are and aren't going to do.
Yeah. That's
you
not
know,
smart.
like why wouldn't you want to have all of that? I mean, Jamie Johnson wrote In Color, and he also wrote Honky Donk Badonka Donk.
Okay. Best story on that. I just
Yeah.
heard from Stacy Wilbur, who's in the room when it got pitched. She told this at the Play for Publisher thing. This was great. So, Honky Donk Badonka Donk, it was a big old hit for Trace Adkins, and people hated it. And it was a big old hit, right? And people loved it.
Yeah.
So, she was part of a pluggers group who was meeting with I don't know if it was maybe the label, and they, playing their songs, that they're aiming for Trace. Trace isn't there, but they're playing for the label. And then at the last one, they'd gotten together ahead of time and said, "We're gonna play this Jamie Johnson song as a total joke, because we're just gonna play it straight. Like, yeah, this is for Trace.
and then they're going to lead into it with, we got this killer
Great thing for
Jamie Johnson
Trace.
song. And you're thinking In Color, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh my God,
this
I
is
can't wait to hear
We
this. Is
think
going
this
to
would be
be
great for
awesome.
Trace,
Prepare
and
to
they're
get the
gonna play
feels.
Honky Tonk Badonka Donk, and then it's going to be hilarious to watch the look on the A&R person's face. So they played it, total joke, and the A&R person's like, "This is awesome. He's going to love this. Thank you. Oh man, what a one to go out on." And they're like, "Yeah,
His
yeah,
jaws
yeah,
on the
that's
ground.
right.
Like,
Yeah, I
what?
mean, we knew. That's why we played fast."
That's awesome.
And then of course he goes and has a big old hit with it, and it was played as a joke. So, but it was compelling.
That's an awesome story, dude.
Yeah. So I'm like, I've never heard that before. That's awesome. But hey, diversified the portfolio. It wasn't all In Color.
Yeah, doesn't
It's
doesn't
crazy.
happen if he wasn't willing to branch out and do something campy.
And do some.
And
They're just having fun. They were just laughing their butts off writing that song.
yeah,
They were laughing
yeah.
their badonkadonks off writing that. Just having a fun day. But but if you're a really good writer, it's going to be well written, and then it has a
Yeah.
chance. And it's just a matter of, do people want that flavor or not? Another good
And who's
example
going to
is,
sell it? What artist is going to sell it?
yeah, exactly. I mean, and he probably never expected to get cut because it got pitched as a joke. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
But it was compelling. That's why I got pitched. Another good example is Whisper and Bill Anderson. Man, Bill started out as an artist like in the 60s, maybe, and he's transitioned into a Hall of Fame songwriter. I mean, he's written like #1 singles like every decade since like the 60s.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure he had
Wow.
one in the 2010s. Like he wrote Whiskey Lullaby for Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss. He wrote, I mean,
Love that
he's
song.
written so much stuff. I think he was on Give It Away for Straight. Speaking of Jamie
Just give
Johnson,
it away.
I think he
Yeah.
was on Give It Away. I mean, and he's just for years. I mean, would have a #1 in all these decades because
Yeah.
the stuff
Just gets in and
sound
plays in the sandbox. Go play in the sandbox.
exactly. He'd learn, adapt, and be like, and he's not like, that's not how we did in the 1960s. It's like 2010, right? He's
Yeah.
not
I hope not.
saying
I
that.
hope it ain't the way we're doing it in the 1960s. That ain't
Exactly.
going to get on the air.
So he's adapted, and so hey, if he and Bobby Braddock, who they were already rocking, if they're willing to grow and adapt and learn and not hate on everything because it's different, then what right do I have to hate on stuff and not try
Yep.
something new? Because I don't have the track record they did when they were adapting, because they were always adapting. It's art; it changes. All right, last one here because I know we're getting long. Number 5, the pro knows it is not your job to write songs. It is your job to write songs that monetize. A songwriter can write all the songs in the world, but if those songs don't make enough money, you're going to be back waiting tables. You're going to be back selling cars. I'll be back in that grease truck. I wore my BHT hat today, my old school hat from an old day job I had. It's like, as sometimes I'd wear that as a reminder, you got to get some cuts because you do not want to go back to that, right?
This is what life used to look like. That's right.
Exactly. To be a pro, your songs have to make money. Now, I've talked before about internal pros and external pros. So we're talking about external pro, like getting the gig and keeping the gig. It's a subtle but profound difference in mindset between like my job is to write songs and my job is to write money-making songs. Those are going to lead you to different choices on a day-to-day basis. It's going to remind you, like, I need to do the uncomfortable things of networking, of plugging my songs, all that stuff. Like, there's a big difference between a quarterback. Johnny, which quarterback do you want on your team? The one who believes it is my job to throw passes, or the one who believes it is my job to throw passes that move us down the field into the end zone?
End zone, down the field, into the end zone.
Right. So if a quarterback is just thinking his job is to throw passes, he's measuring his success way too early. Throwing passes is part of the ultimate success, which is move down the field, get touchdowns, score points. But if you just go, my job is to throw passes. I threw a pass. Success. Dude, it was incomplete. It ended up in the grass. Or that was intercepted. They just scored pick 6. They just scored on you. Well, my job is to throw passes. Did my job. I don't want that guy on the field for my team. I want him on the field for the other team. You know, if that's your mindset, my job is just to throw passes, you're going to end up riding the pine. You'll be down to lonely end of the bench by the kicker. If you think your job is just to throw passes. Our job is not to throw passes. Our job is to throw passes that move the ball down the field, because not every pass is going to be a touchdown. Not every song you write is going to be a hit. But the job is like move us down the field till we get into that end zone. That's the goal. Get the ball into the end zone.
You had to use that reference today, didn't you, you jerk?
What? Did something happen there in Rogers?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't heard yet.
You haven't heard?
No.
Oh, at lunch yesterday, I'm looking at the TV and I'm like, what the actual F? Like, whoa! Turn down. Well, you know, there's been drama at the Packers.
Yeah.
With him where he hates the GM and he's just like, you know, he doesn't like the way they're treating him and stuff. And so they gave him like this massive 2-year contract extension that would have kept him in. He's contracted now through 2023. This contract extension would have been, and this, he's been asking for trades, by the way. And this contract would have kept him for 5 more years, and it would have made him once again the highest paid NFL player. Turns it down.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Turned it down. I'm just like, I'm sorry, little panic mode. You just brought that out. It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But
sorry about that, Johnny. I would have sidestepped.
You gave me the feels.
Had I known. Had I known.
Now I need a drink.
Sorry. But on the bright side, Bobby Portis won a ring last night with the Milwaukee Bucks, and Portis is a Razorback great. So I was happy
50 years.
Arkansas. And
50 years. 50 years.
So, you just need some
That's
Portis
so
in your life.
Cool.
So anyway, so wrapping this up.
Brewers are number one. Brewers are number one right now. Brewers are leading the division. So that's cool too.
Hey, that part of the world is doing all right. So overall, okay, so knowing that your job is to write songs that can make some money is going to affect which song ideas you write, who you write it with, the creative choices along the way writing those songs. Like, do we put the F word in this song or not? Dude, I'm trying to get on the radio here. No, I'm not going to put the F word in the song, right? It also affects what you do after you write the song, which, you know, some of which we're going to talk about next time. But because the pro knows a lot more, but this is what we have time for because we're coming up on an hour. But so just to recap real quick. So the pro knows you have to endure. The pro knows it is a relationship business. The pro knows you have to be disciplined. The pro knows you must always seek to improve and stay relevant. And the pro knows it is not your job to write songs. It is your job to write songs that monetize, that make money. And so think on those things and don't just think about it. Do something about it. Don't just be hearers of this. Be doers. But that's what I got today. Except, you know, a little happy prize for sitting through almost an hour of this. So, as some of y'all know, I host the Songwriting Pro community at songwritingpro.com. We have a members area. We have, ton of hours of content to help songwriters, write like a pro, do business like a pro, and connect to the pros. And that's all kind of behind the wall. You have to be a member to get access to that stuff. But I've taken a little bit of that, a little bit, which is like over 5 hours of content, and made it available so you can check it out if you want to without joining the membership. It's like a sneak preview. It's a little appetizer for the Songwriting Pro community. We have interviews with Hall of Fame songwriters, Song of the Year songwriters, hit producers, publishers, all that kind of stuff. You can get access to that at songwritingpro.com/preview. That is songwritingpro.com/preview. It's free. Just, you sign up for it so we can send you the access link for it, and you can check out over 5 hours of stuff from the pros to help you know what the pros know, help you get in their mind, know what they're thinking about, how they think about it, so you can have that kind of success, hopefully. So that's it. It's my gift.
That's a free education, people. If you don't just go get that, I don't even know why you're listening to us right now. But like, why spend the time? Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of another Killer C.L.I.M.B episode. Join the C.L.I.M.B community, subscribe or follow the podcast, depending on what platform you're on. Leave a rating, review, and tell a friend about it. This podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.
Hey, let's add a little bumper in on this. I want to put this in the section right when we take care of business.
Okay.
But can we just give a little shout out to try to drum up some more interest for the video content challenge? So maybe like you're like, hey, dude, that video content challenge episode was cool. Like, do something like that. And I'll be like, yeah, man, you know what? We need more people to send stuff in. And I'll just like, let's plug that a little bit to get.
Yeah. What was the name of the artist that you met with? What was her name?
Her name was Amy Beth
Amy
Griffin.
Beth. Okay.
Yeah. And the song was called Borrowed.
Borrowed. Yep. All right.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Hey, by the way, Johnny, that video content challenge that you dropped the other day that I couldn't make it to, so I got to listen like everyone else. It was fun. Yeah. I was playing along at home. I was like about to text you ideas like, oh, I got an idea too. But then I realized I should, if I wanted that, I should have been there. But it was a lot of fun. And Amy Beth was awesome with the song Borrowed. So I really like what you came up with there. So yeah, you need to do that some more.
That was, thank you. That was super cool. She was a trooper. I mean, I just literally last minute, you want to do this podcast with me right now? She's like, all right. And so shout out to Amy Beth for doing that. But guys, what we did, if you haven't heard this little mini-sode yet, last Friday, was Amy has a song. It's all recorded. And now she's starting to put together, the video concepts that she wants to put out and how, like, promotional ideas specifically geared around video content. So we're not just talking about how to make the music video conceptually, but what other video content can go and support that. And so I thought, in a song title challenge kind of way, a lot of you by now know song title challenge and how that helps. And I thought, man, because we had a great consultation with a climber, longtime climber, and these are the questions he was asking me, and we just started riffing together. And I was like, man, that would make a great episode, or a great series of episodes like Song Title Challenge, where it's like, here's the name of the song, here's my brand, here's the track, what can we do? How can we get to 7? That's the thing. Like, how can we get people to hear that hook 7 times with different video content? And so, we talked about different ways that you could kind of shoot the video, but also what would be behind the lyric video. In this case, like, her song was called Borrowed. Mm-hmm. It's a Christian song. And basically your life, your family's lives, they're all borrowed from God. And it's not a preachy song. It's not like a praise and worship thing or anything. It's very much of I want to give it back. And she's just talking about borrowed. And we just came up with a bunch of really cool conceptual ideas that would get people like saying borrowed inside their own heads, like little psychological tricks within video content. So I recommend you go listen to that, number 1. But number 2, send in your ideas. If you got a track that's done, and even if you've already done the music video for it, you're going to need some supporting video promotional content to go around that. And some of these ideas we were talking about these might be like 7 to 15 second video pieces that just had this cool little hook in them that would work as promotional material to get people interested in that concept and in that song. So send your ideas in, guys, to info@daredevilproduction.com and just put VCC or Video Content Challenge into the subject line, because now every other Friday, this is what I'm going to do. Brent and I are going to get on as much as Brent and I can, but and we're going to try to get the artist on if it logistically can work out, and then just do this sort of brainstorm on all the different kinds of ways that we can spin video content that would be interesting, that is specifically geared to pop on the digital platform. I'm super excited about this. I think I'm glad you said something about that first show, Brent, because I was a little nervous about it. We haven't done that before, and I got to do what you do now, like where I'm put on the spot, and I just got to create like under the gun.
That's right.
But I really think it turned out really well. I know Amy Beth was super excited, and she was just like an overload with like, my brain is spinning, like what do I do?
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, send your ideas in, and we'll get them on the air. We're going to need more, and if you dug that, if that makes sense to you, help us help you. What do you got to lose, right? So,
right. Get it in.